Today we're checking out the Bose QC Ultra Gen 2. Now Gen 1 still has some of the strongest noise cancelling, but were plagued with issues. Poor connectivity, buzzing in one earbud, and some of the worst call quality. Spoiler, that's basically all been fixed on Gen 2. But as usual today, I'll be scoring and ranking the buds in a total of 10 categories. Now the retail price is $299 US. They cost me $380 on sale in Australia. But let's get into category 1, comfort. I'm scoring the QC2 an 8.5 out of 10. It's basically the same fit as Gen 1. You get 3 sizes of ear tips, 3 sizes of wings, but the ear tips now have a cover on them, so less chance of wax buildup on the drivers. But it's the same moderately deep fit. The oval shaped ear tips are quite comfortable. They should work fine whether you have large ears or small ears. Now category 2 is a security of the fit. I'm scoring them an 8.5 here as well. Since they're one of the few buds that actually have a wingtip, which just gives you that extra peace of mind when exercising. Even when I don't use the wings, the buds still lock in place great whether I'm weight training or running. But it's still nice to have a wing so you won't have to adjust your earbuds as often. I've only got 2 buds scored higher on my spreadsheet as they do have a more stable wing, but they are exercise focused earbuds. Still on the QC2 you get an IPX4 water resistant rating. Alright, category 3 is case and battery life. Score on the QC2 a 7.5 out of 10. Again, same as Gen 1, 6 hours of bud battery, 24 hours in total with the case, and that's with noise cancelling on. Bose does advertise 4 hours of battery if you use spatial audio. You also get the same fast charge, so chuck the buds in the case for 20 minutes, you're gonna get 2 hours of playback on the earbuds. What's new on Gen 2 though is that the case can now be charged wirelessly. Really should have been there back before the Ultra even came out. But anyway, it's here now. The case itself is also identical to Gen 1. It's not the most compact, but thin enough so you can still chuck it in your pocket. Here it is compared to one of the thinnest cases, the AirPods Pro 3. Alright, category 4 is controls. Score on the QC2 an 8.5 out of 10. Again, exactly the same as Gen 1. I originally had them scored an 8 since you don't get the best customization, but the main thing here is that you get swipe control for volume, which I do prioritize with my scoring. Now I still prefer squeeze and swipe controls, so if your fingers are sweaty or clammy, it can kind of grip on the touch surface, but it works well enough. So the great thing about swipe controls, even with one earbud, you can control everything: play, pause, track control, volume, and noise cancelling. You do get some light customization of the long hold. You can add spatial audio, Bluetooth device switch, voice assistant, and quick access to Spotify. The wearing detection here is also the same. You don't get skin detection, and there's still no option to mute your mic on a phone call. Alright, category 5 is connectivity. Again, I'm scoring the QC2 an 8.5 out of 10. Again, same as Gen 1, you got Bluetooth 5.3, SBC, AAC, aptX adaptive, and lossless. You also have Google Fast Pair and Microsoft Swift Pair. You can also use either earbud with the other in the case, and it's going to work in mono mode, so you hear left and right audio channel out of that one bud. You also get multi-point connection, so you can have 2 devices connected to the buds at the same time. You just need to pause playback on one device before playing it on the other device for that audio to kick in. Now the gaming latency here isn't great. Here's what I got on an iPhone 15 Pro and Nothing Phone 3a Pro. Casual games, you should be fine. If you're into quick reaction games like shooters, not great. All right, now category 6 is call quality. I always run through 3 tests here: a quiet room, simulation crowd noise, and a simulation windy city with construction noise. And this is an immense upgrade over Gen 1. Scoring the QC2 a 9 out of 10, so 3 points higher. Bose has gone from the worst call quality to some of the best. And especially with that windy city test, that's going to be the most noticeable improvement. So now I'll leave you with some samples here comparing Gen 1 and Gen 2. I'm also going to chuck in one of the highest scored Nothing Ear 3. All right, here is the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra in a quiet room. All right, here's the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra 2 in a quiet room. All right, here's the Nothing Ear 3 in a quiet room. All right, now we're going to see how the microphones block out some simulation crowd noise. All right, here's the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra with some simulation crowd noise. All right, here's the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra 2 with some simulation crowd noise. All right, here's the Nothing Ear 3 with some simulation crowd noise. All right, now I have some city noise, some construction noise, and some simulation wind. All right, here's the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra with some city noise, construction noise, and some simulation wind. All right, here's the Bose Quiet Comfort Ultra 2 with some city noise, construction noise, and some simulation wind. All right, here's a Nothing Ear 3 with some city noise, construction noise, and some simulation wind. All right, now category 7 is app customization and extra features. Scoring the QC2 a 6.5 out of 10. The app works fine, you just don't get the best customization. First up, you have modes, which basically lets you choose some custom noise cancelling and transparency settings. You can also add spatial audio into the mix and changes with your controls. Source has all your connected devices. With the sound customization, you're only getting a 3-band EQ, which is why I brought the score down quite a bit. You do get some freedom to tailor the sound, but you need at least a 5-band EQ nowadays. Immersive audio is basically your spatial audio toggle. The shortcut has your control customization I ran through before. That settings tab at the top right has smaller extras like an eTip fit test, updates, you can turn off touch controls, adjust self voice. So this is how much of your own voice you hear on a phone call. You can still just turn noise cancelling or transparency on though, which I prefer. You also get some voice prompt settings and that's basically everything. Again, same as Gen 1. All right, now category 8 is noise cancelling, and I test this on a soundbar, simulation plane noise, crowd noise, random music, and I test all my earbuds at the gym as well. And Bose reclaims that first spot with some of the strongest noise cancelling you can get, scoring them a 10 out of 10. If you watch my AirPods Pro 3 review, you would have seen I chucked the QC2 into that video because I needed to compare the best of the best, and going back and forth for basically an hour straight, it's basically neck and neck. It's really close between both buds. It's very impressive noise cancelling. What I find really impressive with the QC2 is the noise cancelling is this strong without any use of foam ear tips, like the AirPods Pro 3. So if you did have some foam ear tips, which you could technically chuck on the QC2, you get even stronger noise cancelling. So it's only slightly stronger than Gen 1, definitely not a massive improvement. That's still incredibly strong noise cancelling as well. But what they have fixed here is that annoying static sound that a lot of people had, and I definitely had in my left earbud with noise cancelling on. So this was noticeable if you listen at low volumes or you had no music playing. There's just constantly an obvious static sound in the left earbud. Now that has basically almost completely been fixed on Gen 2. I noticed it randomly, but very subtly, like to the point where even if I'm in a really quiet environment, it was pretty tricky to hear. Still, it really shouldn't be there at all, but it's not a huge issue now. The rest of it's all the same here. There's barely any EQ shift. You can use one earbud with noise cancelling with the other in the case. And the wind pickup with noise cancelling on is very low. So if you're outside on a pretty windy day, you're not going to hear the microphones pick up that wind. All right, category 9 is the transparency mode, scoring the QC2 a 9 out of 10. Again, it's the same as Gen 1 here. The overall clarity is decent. It's quite a natural transparency mode. Nothing's overly amplified. The occlusion is quite minimal, so I don't get too much of that blocked ear effect. And my own voice sounds quite natural when I speak myself. There isn't too much white noise. Like, you will notice it in a quiet room, but that's the case with any transparency mode. You also get the same active sense mode, which is basically a blend of transparency and noise cancelling. I still think Apple does this the best. So with the Bose buds, like if I was around the house and I would turn a tap on, it wouldn't react to that noise, where a bud like the AirPods Pro 2 or Pro 3 would. But you're still able to customize the strength of the noise cancelling as well as the transparency and save separate presets. So you technically can't turn noise cancelling off, but you can mimic it if you just have it in the middle setting there. All right, now onto the final round, sound quality. Starting here with my max volume test, Bose knows how to make some loud earbuds. I measured the QC2 just over 119 decibels. So they definitely go loud, but what's also impressive to see here is the low volume EQ. So naturally we hear less bass and treble at lower volumes, and Bose kind of compensates for this by boosting the bass and treble. So you just get a richer sound at the low volumes. I think they boost the bass slightly too much. A bud like the AirPods Pro 3 is a bit more balanced in this regard, but it's still nice that they do it. It would be nice to have the option to turn this off though, if you don't like that boosting. But now onto the sound quality itself, I'm scoring the QC2 an 8 out of 10. Again, the sound is basically the same as Gen 1. I think the treble may be boosted slightly more, but definitely not enough of a change to warrant a higher score. But really no complaints with the sound here. I like the Bose tuning. It's rich, but also quite balanced. There is an emphasis on sub bass, but it's not over the top. The mid bass is quite clean. It can be a bit lacking at times, so some bass lines and low end from drums and distorted guitars isn't as rich as I would personally like. The mids are definitely a standout though, so vocals are quite forward, but not pushed to the point of being over the top. My only complaint with the tuning here is that the lower mids are a bit lacking. So I noticed with male vocals or vocals in those lower ranges just lacked a bit of warmth and aren't as rich as other earbuds. The upper mids kind of make up for this though. So instrumentation like keys, snare drums, percussion, distorted guitars are really well separated. I think this is why the vocals also cut through quite well in those higher ranges and female vocals especially. Now the treble here also has nice balance. You get some precision and detail. It's quite a laid back treble response, so it's definitely not a fatiguing tuning. The upper treble is a bit lacking though, so crashes, hi-hats and like really high ranged vocals and instrumentation does fall back ever so slightly. And this kind of adds to a slightly closed in sound. And since you only get a 3-band EQ, it's kind of tricky to improve the upper treble and the lower mids since you only get 3 bands in there. So if you had a better EQ, I would probably score these buds an 8.5, but I score all the buds on my ranking with only their dedicated apps. Despite all that though, I think it's a pretty well-rounded tuning. And I'll quickly mention the spatial audio. It's exactly the same as Gen 1, so you get it with head tracking, and Bose does a really good job at mimicking the sound kind of coming from speakers in front of you. But with this, you do get quite a bit of reverb and everything sounds a bit strange, and this is normally the case with most buds that have spatial audio, so I'm not using it. But that wraps up all 10 categories. Real quick, if you want to customize the scoring, check out my free spreadsheet linked below. On there you get notes for each score, specifications tab, core quality tab, and you can change the weight of each category, which gives you a new custom ranking. But now the final scores are in, and the QC2 finishes with 84 out of 100. So a solid 4-point bump up from the QC Ultra. Keep in mind that is mainly coming from the core quality, but you also get the wireless charging case and those improved ear tips. But that core quality upgrade was definitely needed. Just with that alone, this now makes the QC Ultra 2 an easy recommendation for me. Because if you're looking for a solid all-round bud with the strongest noise cancelling and you're not in the Apple ecosystem, the QC2 Ultra are going to be the bud I recommend. But if you're looking for better sound quality and you still want a great all-round earbud, my next best pick is going to be the Technics AZ100, so check out my full review right here. Thanks for tuning in, stay picky, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.